Hello, my name is Lewis, and today is a long-awaited tutorial video that I was going to make for a friend of mine named Lofie. She asked me a few months ago, asking me how do I build the trees in my Minecraft worlds, mainly my creative ones. She asked me how do I do it, and I told her that the best way I could show you is through either a video that can be uploaded through YouTube, or by showing her when she has the time away from her job and stuff. And the YouTube video was the most efficient way, or most effective way of doing it. Now, this video is intended mainly for her, but I will post it publicly to anyone else that this could help. I'm not a professional builder. I kind of build just for fun. I build just whenever the hell I feel like it. And this video could help a lot of people, especially when it comes to visualizing how to build trees in Minecraft. Specifically building trees that are custom made rather than spawning them with saplings. Now, for context, or not context, but to lay out some important things, when it comes to building trees on Minecraft, what kind of tree are you planning to build? There are a wide variety of trees that you can start building. From pine trees to evergreens to swamp trees, the flat ones, the ones that you see in savannas and stuff. There's a wide variety of trees in our real life world, or you could do fictional trees, trees that don't exist, trees that exist in only other video games like Elden Ring and stuff. You can do a wide variety of things, and all you need simply is a reference image. Let me show you the one that I have. Today our reference is going to be the pine tree. This is one of my favorite trees. The pine tree is a favorite of mine due to the fact that I used to climb them a lot when I was a kid, especially when I used to live out in an isolated apartment complex. This will be our reference for today. Now, one of the first steps I always take into building trees is to understand the layout of the tree. What I mean by this, and here I will go ahead and visualize it for you. The layout is usually composed of what makes a tree a tree. And it's usually the bark, the branches, and the leaves. I usually like to start with what can you see within your reference. Obviously in our reference you can see the bottom bits of the bark as well as the in-betweens, but most part of the tree is just a bunch of leaves. So I visualize in my head, and in order to show you what's going on in my head, I have pulled up my art program of what I basically do when I'm trying to figure out trees. Bring out my brushes that I have, that I downloaded from the Clip Studio Paint store. Where is it? There they are. And I just go ahead and start visualizing basically what's in my head of what the tree will look like. We're doing a pine tree. So pine trees, and usually most trees actually, usually start real skinny at the top and get thicker and thicker all the way down to the base. Bob Ross could easily teach you in one of his art videos on YouTube, or well, it used to be the Joy of Painting on TV, but I watched him on YouTube because it was free and available there. If you don't like how the trees visualize in your head, you can go for a thicker base if you wish. Just about something like that, you know. And then you've got your branches. Branches work the exact same way. They're usually thicker at the base, and then they come out a little bit thinner as they go away from the bark. And you want to visualize straight in your head of what branches are going to be available in your view and which branches aren't. Now remember that your branches will not be perfect. Some branches may remain thick, some may skinny out as they form out from the tree, some may have different limbs on it and stuff. That's basically the idea in a visualization. Then you have the leaves, and the leaves are basically probably the easiest part when you're drawing a tree. The leaves, probably the easiest part to visualize. What parts are you going to block out and what parts are you going to keep in? Now, just grab my brush for what I use for when I draw trees. Let's take this tree, for example, that I'm visualizing in my head, but onto the artwork paper. For the pine tree, if we look back at our reference, this is what the pine tree looks like. It's thick at the bottom with the leaves, and it skinnies all the way back up to the top. And the top is usually the smallest part. That's how pine trees work. So, when we start drawing, when I get the right brush, there we go, that's the brush I needed, and I am fucking up already. Alright, here we go. What's the size of brush? There we go. So we think about just adding this bit old bottom part. It's hiding too much of the bark. Let's go up a bit. There we go. Just go ahead and put this out just like that. And to pine trees in particular, they seem to be layered out in horizontal lines that curve as they go up the tree. So we just go ahead and do so. Just kind of get your base out. I know this is not a drawing video, this is me just trying to help visualize for when it comes to building the pine tree, but still, when it comes to the actual branches part, just cover what you don't want to be seen, and then keep what you do want to be seen as you visualize in your head, and then eventually you've got a very basic pine tree. And just fill it all in, and that's basically how I visualize trees, basically. But how do you take an artwork like this, or whatever's in your head, and put it, go ahead and turn off my drawing tablet real quick and put away my stuff. How do you take this and put it into a 3D world? Because what I just painted onto a 2D canvas isn't really going to be easy to be put out onto a 3D landscape. What I mainly do is that I use Axiom. Fuck your update. I mainly use Axiom. And Axiom is probably one of the easiest ways ever. If you're on Bedrock, there's also another add-on on Bedrock that's only about $5, called World Edit, World Build, something like that. It's basically a form of World Edit that could really help you get your tree game on started. But I will also be showing you how to do it manually by hand as well. I'm going to show off Axiom first because it's the fastest and easiest way of converting from a 2D image all the way into a 3D build using Minecraft. So let's start, as I said before, with the bark. How tall you want your tree to be. We'll grab a shape from Axiom. We'll grab probably the cone. Where's the cone? There it is. Grab the cone, make it real tall. There we go. Do not want our tree made of stone, as cool as that would be. Also, make sure to grab whatever block you want to use to make your trees out of. You're not strictly limited to wood. I like to use just wood, but you can use basically whatever you want. Try and think about how wide you want your tree to be, or maybe how tall. I like to use, for the pine trees, usually a skinny base. Just kind of like that. And then, if I can, usually there should be, there it is, the rounding. And we make it a bit taller. Make it a bit more skinny. A few bit taller, make it 100 bucks tall. There we go. That's a bit good, ain't it? I like that. And in Axiom, you just click enter, boom, it's there. And you can make any edits to it later. So we got the tall base. Now this is going to be a massive tree, I'm aware, but I like to build massive trees. That's usually my go-to style. You can build trees however which way you want, that's entirely up to you. I just like building massive trees. Next thing I go for is to try and figure out the branches. Which branches are going to be available and which ones are going to be just hidden away. Now, for this build, I probably won't be using the brushes. I will probably do this by hand because it'll be a whole lot easier to visualize it by hand. Grab your wood, grab whatever block you've used, and start visualizing like you did in the drawing. Here's the drawing again, boop boop boop. Or in your reference image, wha-bam. Try to figure out where you want your branches to be and which ones you want to be visible. Let's say you want to build a tree that could probably lead up to a base, right? So go towards the bottom. Usually your branches will start about right here. If you're not going for realism, then of course you can go start at the bottom if you wish. But I'm going to start the branches right about here. Remember, they're longer towards the bottom and they get skinnier as they go away up to the top. And don't worry, we'll edit the branches later. Let's remove that. If we're going to make a staircase here, might as well make a staircase. And usually when I start building out the branches and stuff, I like to make the branches go in kind of just wacky random directions. Go up, go down, left, right, don't matter which. Branches are not perfect. Branches are random. They might have little random oddities to them. Kind of like this, you know. You guys just do it randomly. Do it on every side. And since we're going to make a staircase here, we'll go ahead and try and make it easily accessible through a method of parkour, or to add in, you know, our own little twist to it later on in the build. Go ahead, just make your branches. This might take a bit. Of course, it depends on how fast you want to work with. Don't worry about making mistakes along the way. These little top nibble parts right here that you see, they could be just part of the little parts that scratch you on the branches and stuff, you know? You work your way up. Make your branches a bit skinnier, a bit shorter. Man, this video is teaching me that I really need a new mouse at some point, because this one is terrible. Let's add a bit more here. I think I have a certain setting on. Yep, I do. That setting is fucking me over. There we go. You want to try and get skinnier and skinnier as you go your way up. Maybe this part would just be a bunch of leaves. Maybe we don't need anything here. And as I said, I'm not an expert. And hell, most of the trees I make aren't really these type of trees anyway. I just decided to go out of my comfort zone just to show that you can really make anything you want. And this is a game that gives you open free will of whatever the hell you want to do. You make the rules for yourself, not other players. And if you're doing a build competition, of course you have to follow the rules. But if you're in your own world and you're doing what you want to do, fuck the rules. Do whatever the hell you want. Do the out of the ordinary. Do something that someone hasn't done before. Do something that people have already done, but add your own little personal twist to it, you know. As we make our way to the top, the branches are going to get shorter, maybe less wacky. Maybe more wacky, if you really wanted to. You can do something like this, where it does like that. Yeah, that looks pretty nice. And this is just going to be a simple build. I'm not going to go too in-depth with this, but I feel like that points, that probably points the cross, that probably paints the point across. Jesus. But yeah, just get your branches in, add as many as you want. And then next, this is where I do use the builder for get your leaves that you want to use with. I am personally a big fan of dark oak leaves. Dark oak leaves are probably my favorite, especially when it comes to something like this. And go ahead and grab your, let's see, I'm going to grab a sphere. Expand it a bit. It looks like I don't have much options here. Now, as we demonstrated before in the visual of both here as well as right here, the pine tree has usually a more flat, curvy surface to their leaves. So, I don't think a sphere brush would be very perfect here. So, we're going to go ahead and select, where is it? There it is, the ellipsoid. Change the height down to, let's do a 3 maybe. Yeah, 3 looks good. And change the radius up a bit. Flatten it just a bit more, put that at a 2. There we go. Now decrease the radius a bit to 6. Yeah, that works. And set the time again. Just real quick. There we go. And we begin. Also, if you feel bad for using Axiom, probably don't feel bad. It's a great time saver. And if you're just using Axiom to have fun, you don't have to worry about all the costs and expenses and stuff that I've seen about the ooh, there's a mistake. Oops. Did not mean for that to happen. But yeah, all the times and costs and stuff, Axiom helps save a lot of time with your work. And the only people that'll be mad at you are the people who placed everything one by one, who probably feel very deeply that Axiom is replacing their work, in which it can, depending on what commissions that you take off of. But anyway, I'm not here to get, it's not really political, but I'm not here to talk about the disdain for Axiom. I'm just here to show you how to build trees. And if you notice here, I'm doing a little gap right here. There's a little gap in between the tree. And gaps are kind of like the white space. if you know what that is. If you don't know what white space is, white space usually in art is a way to really help the entire thing kind of like expand out, to really pop out a bit more. You know, if you ever wondered why there's a bunch of empty space in some artworks out there, it's because it helps the main attraction of the artwork pop out a whole lot more. And that's basically what we're doing here with these gaps in between the leaves and stuff. And as you work your way to the top, you want to make sure that maybe you change your radius up a bit, make it a bit smaller. And I'm just kind of blocking things out right now. What I mean by that is that I'm just making the general structure. You can edit everything later. I just want to block things out to get the general idea and vision of what is in my mind onto your own personal 3D canvas when you're creating stuff on Minecraft. Now for this little top part here, the pine tree usually tends to do this little, I don't know how you call this, kind of like, does like a little shape, you know. So, we can just do it like this, just add a little shape, curve it up maybe, just like that. My middle mouse wheel doesn't work, so normally I would be using the orbit camera, but the middle mouse wheel not working makes it very hard to be able to do that. So there we go. That's good enough. It's not the greatest looking tree. It's not the best, but it's a tree nonetheless. How can we make it better? How can we flesh it out a bit? Because all I did was paint on some general shapes of an ellipsoid with different dimensions. How can we make this look a little bit more like a tree, you know? Go back out. We can go ahead in these empty spaces, add some more branches if we'd like. I usually just go in different directions, doesn't matter. I spam the button and take a look at it. Does it look nice? It looks fine. It looks fine to me. We go right here. Make it go down a little bit. And usually some branches always have other branches that depart from them. Just about like that. Maybe like right here we get another branch. Have it depart this way. And have the other part up here depart this way. There we go. Bit of branch variety. Now, for any experts who knows how to properly build, maybe a bit better, maybe more professionally, leave your criticisms down in the comments of the ways that I can improve, as well as anyone else who follows this tutorial and how they can improve. But please, just be civil in the comments. Don't start an argument or do any trash talking or whatever. That doesn't really benefit anyone other than, I guess, your ego, maybe. Which, honestly, if you trash talk in the comments, that just helps boost this video, and I'll just use your pridefulness as a way to boost the engagement for my channel. So really, you're just helping me out in the end of the day. I'm thinking on this part of the tree right here to be a bit more bulky with some bushes, so I'm not gonna bother adding any branches right there. And usually, to roughen things up, I like to use the roughen brush here. Roughen brush just roughs up your leaves to make them look a bit more realistic. Just spray it on just a little bit, move the size down a bit. It just roughens up the branches, or not the branches, the leaves. It roughens up the leaves. What the hell am I saying? I don't know. I'm doing this all in one take, by the way. There's not a single part here that you're going to see that's going to be a retake over and over or whatever. I'm doing this all in one take. Now if you notice, my roughen up brush is fucking up the twigs a little bit, but that's okay. I can go in and fix it later. Every tool that you use at your disposal other than generative AI, which fuck generative AI. If you're an AI user, promptly go pick up a pencil and a pen and actually learn how to draw, you lazy ass bitch. But anyway, every tool can be used at your disposal, and that's what I'm currently using. I'll ignore the fact that I just accidentally roughened the terrain in the background, and I feel like that's good. It roughens up the leaves a bit more. And let's add in a bit more leaves. We're going to use the same brush as before, but we're going to make it a bit smaller. A bit more flat. There we go. What I'm going to do is just add a bit more of this middle layer. A bit of just randomness. Let's make it a bit more higher. I treat Axiom kind of like how it feels to paint in a 3D landscape, kind of like sculpting, you know. Have you ever sculpted in Blender? Because that's how this feels. It feels like I'm sculpting with Blender right now. If you notice what I did here, when I messed up those branches, I kind of filled in the space with the leaves that I'm building onto it right now. Kind of just helps it. Kind of look like the leaves, or not the leaves, the branches are going through the leaves, you know. So that's what branches do sometimes. If you feel like you've done too much, you can delete them by doing the undo when you're using Axiom, or if you're using your hands, you just break every single block one by one. To which I do have actually a lot of respect towards the community who builds everything one by one. You have the sanity to do something that I do not. I could never. Well, I say I could never, but I actually used to do it before. I used to do everything by hand. I don't do that much anymore because I have a lot less time in my days. I mean, I'm not an old man, I'm only 20 years old, but I am trying to focus on the future to build upon before I continue focusing on any of my hobbies. It's not the best looking tree, but it's still a tree nonetheless. Could definitely use some work, but I feel like at this point, at this stage, you kind of get the idea. Once you've got the leaves down and you've got the base and the branches, you go in and make the edits that you wish to make. And even though it doesn't look that great like this, in Java Edition, which is the edition that I'm on, when you add shaders, it makes anything look 100 times better. Seriously. I'll just open up the free cam. Just look at that. With shaders, which is the shader pack that I'm currently using as Solus shaders, it looks 100 times better. Especially with the shadows. Like, come on. That looks pretty cool for such a basic build. Now, what happens if you want to do a tree with your hands? Well, that process is a bit slower, so we won't do something on the scale of something like that. We'll do maybe a smaller custom tree, maybe a tree that you want to have right outside your house. Something not too big, not too grand, but something that's good enough, you know. So grab whatever blocks do you want to build with. Have your reference set ready, which my reference is right here. Boom. And usually, I take the exact same concept. You start big at the bottom, and you go a bit skinnier, a bit more narrow as you work your way up to the top. Most trees, as I said previously, are just like that, so we'll go ahead and start with that. Begin with a simple 2x2. And as I work my way up, not all trees are going to be perfectly straight. If you want your tree to be perfectly straight, you can, but I like to tore off a bit to the side as I work with my trees. Of course, the pine tree, if you look in that reference, is a bit of a curve. As we noticed from the top to the bottom, it's got this slight curve. It's a bit straighter than other trees, but still got a slight curve to it. Let's see, we've made it up to here now. We can start skinning it up to a kind of an oddness to it. And then, our final part here. About like that. Just think of the base. Don't think too hard as you're trying to form the shape of your tree. And then maybe add a few bit extra details. What I mean by details is making sure that the connection looks kind of smooth. This is more of a personal preference for me. If this looks good enough to you, then go right ahead and start building your branches next. But I like to just add a bit more roughness to it, just a little bit. Something like that. Maybe you could delete some pieces here and there. There we go. feel like that's a good shape. And then for when you do smaller trees like this, your branches probably won't be as grand, but that's okay, because you can still manage to do so. And some people I've noticed who will build these sort of builds may use fences for skinnier branches. I'm not too big fan of using fences. It's not something I usually do, but you can for the smaller branches towards the top. I'll go ahead and start doing them right here, just to provide as an example of branches you could use towards the top. I like to add a bit of variety. Do a bit of this, have it at different levels. Maybe you could do start out with a thicker part and then use the fences right next to it. I feel like there could be more branches on this side. It's all about trial and error. Just kind of like eyeball it all. Go with what you feel like looks better most with it. And I feel like that's a good base to start with. And go towards the bottom. And this is my favorite part. Because when you start doing the leaves by hand without using Axiom, you can really just go wild with it. That's what I mostly do. You start with adding just kind of a little ring, your base idea of where your leaves are going to go. And then I kind of just spam it from here. Because now I do already have my vision. It's already right here. And this is where you can just start going wild with your leaves. Just start spamming the button. Like right now, I'm just spamming right click right now as I build in these leaves. Feel like you missed a spot? Just go right under. Don't break your mistakes. Just leave them there. Because something that's great about human-made art, and yes, building stuff on Minecraft worlds are human-made arts. Something great about human-made art that I feel like doesn't get enough credit is the mistakes that we make when we start building, or drawing, or sculpting, or whatever artistic thing that you're creating. The mistakes are usually something that only humans can make, and that's something that I hate about machines, is that machines try to make everything perfect. But when you try and make something that's perfect over and over again, you end up creating something that feels off. Very, very off. Something that doesn't feel very human, you know? When you try to perfect everything, it kind of loses its value. Actually, kinda is an understatement. It very much loses its value. It loses every piece that made something that used to be great into something that's, a lot of people would say, is just a bunch of slop. And this is why a bunch of artists kind of despises AI, because AI, specifically generative AI, will take your process, remove the entire process, and then just give you the output immediately. And to a lot of people who appreciate art and stuff, that is very unsatisfying. Especially to me, and a lot of artists. And also, don't forget the threats that come with generative AI, with the data centers that can pollute one town's piece of water, can be a job replacer, copyright issues, etc., etc. And amidst the world where we have generative AI being a threat to us, some people are able to do things, but I'm merely just a peasant in a town. Not really a peasant. I don't know what word I could use to describe myself, but I can't really do much to help change things, so I kind of just do what I can and use art as a form of escape, as well as help use art as a way to send a message to others of, hey, we need somebody to do something about this. I can't do much. I don't have money. I don't have a form of political power that could help push regulations that are desperately needed towards AI, so instead I do this. Because this is all I really can do. And that's okay. So as we go up the tree, get a bit skinnier. This branch is a bit too long. Let's shorten it a bit. Something I like about building trees in Minecraft is that you can really just go with whatever pace you want to do. You can just spam the button and anything can be considered as a tree, really. And here's the top part. there's a pine tree right there, made by hand. Of course, it's a bit tinier than the massive one, but I feel like this one looks a lot better when you build it with hand. I do like this one a bit more than I did that one. But it did turn out well in the end. Look at that. Let's turn on the shaders once again. Look at that. Just like the big tree, it looks a whole lot better when you've got shaders on. Which, anything that you really build, no matter how shit looks, always looks better with shaders. But I think this is at least a good enough tutorial to probably help out the beginners, to help out my friend Lofie to just get their start. And for anyone who sees this video, whether it be my friend Lofie or just a random person, you could probably take this and expand upon it further and further than what I can comprehend to do. That is my tutorial for trees video. I hope you enjoyed watching, and if you want to see any more future tutorials with what I do, then I can make some more. I hope you enjoyed watching today's video, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya!